Dear Space King fandom, I, Alecations from the Allocation Station, apologize for neglecting you for nearly a year. You have a dedicated fanbase and your creator actively denied corporate funding, meaning you guys need all of the help and attention you can get. Yet for some reason, I was one of the few YouTubers who even talked about your series. And you guys rewarded me with positive comments and more views on those videos than almost any of my non-fundamental paper education videos on my channel. I'm sorry for getting Flashgit's pronouns wrong, not because they are non-binary, but because they are literally two... Well, I can't say that word, Eddie. I don't have the symbiotic pass. Also, the comments in my video inform me of how deep the Warhammer 40k rabbit hole goes and how everything I didn't understand could be explained with lol Warhammer reference. If I miss a reference to Warhammer 40k, it's because the extent of my knowledge is the Magic the Gathering Universe's Beyond Commander set. I only have enough room in my noggin for so many incredibly expansive nerdy verses. I was in a dark place. I made a continuous and serious lapse in judgment, and I just learned empathy from iDubbbz this morning, right before flushing a charity down the drain. To compensate for my misdeeds, not only will I voluntarily glaze your own show once more, but I will also bash Helluva Boss, because honestly, I was being nicer to that show than I should have been.
She knocked down a building to catch their fall? This is a very confusing part. Okay, that's just bullshit. That. Oh my god. That is so... Whatever. It's all good. Positive allocations. Yeah, if you like allocations, animation stuff, allocations, indie animation is good.
I mean, I basically despised all of Season 2. But like, they're indie. Well, they're with Amazon now, so... Vivzie has like $80 million worth of funding because she has like 5 seasons renewed between 2 shows, so she can handle it, I'm sure. If you want to support my channel or specific videos, go to my Patreon, doing art, archive videos, and more. However, let's just talk about Space King and Helluva Boss. I don't want to give you an entire rundown of both shows. I've made videos about both of them before, and honestly they have the opposite problems when it comes to people talking about them, because I was like the only person talking about Space King despite it having a large following. Well, too many people talk about Helluva Boss, and I was kind of getting sick of it being the gateway drug for every small channel to say the same few problems. Not that I disagree with the problems. Now, I don't want to pit shows against each other, especially indies, just out of spite. I will say that this is despite the first video on my channel being this same concept. However, I think the reason it bothers me is because of the intent, and a lot of times it is just due to pure spite or a really dumb comparison that doesn't even make sense. But, I mean, I think this will work, right guys? And yes, people comparing Bojack to Helluva Boss favorably is a good idea because Vivziepop herself has compared the shows, and her shows messes this up because both shows are about a protagonist that needs to accept accountability for their awful actions. However, Bojack deconstructs protagonist Bates' morality while Helluva Boss fails because of it. I'd say Space King is even more similar in concept, not premise, but the edgy indie animation about bad people.
There's plenty of independent animation targeted at mentally ill teenage girls.
But what about mentally ill teenage boys?
And 30-year-old men.
Don't we matter too?
The gist of Space King is the self-proclaimed edgy indie show for the boys that's basically Warhammer 40k except legally distinctive. Helluva Boss is supposedly the edgy show for the boys from Vivziepop, but it devolved into toxic dark romance yaoi, while Has-Been Hotel is about a war between heaven and hell, so I think they kind of got their demographics mixed up. These shows aren't just edgy, but they follow bad people whose characters develop. Now, the thing about character development is people tend to associate it with positive change, but it can be any sort of change. Both Chestnut and Moxie from their respective shows are less evil than their co-workers, but are forced to learn to be more evil to be better at their job. But in Season 2 of Helluva Boss, they continue the plot, where they mostly just laugh at characters being evil, while shaming Blitz for being kind of mean in relationships, and even shame him for not exactly vibing with his employer, who only allowed him to work for a while in exchange for, let's just call it favors, okay? Stolas is the make or break character of the show from an audience's perspective because he is so integral to the plot. And the issue is that the show established him to be a creepy menace in season 1. No one really cared that much because he was treated as a creepy menace throughout most of season 1. Maybe hinted at being more complex, and, because he was abusing someone he cared about by the end of season 1, but kind of realizing, oh my god, my actions and the way I treat people, that can sometimes happen to me. He doesn't have to reciprocate romantically. Oh no, that one syndrome ability of Beauty and the Beast didn't work in reality. But season 2 just bent over backwards to recontextualize him more sympathetically. It warped the plot and morality around pitying essentially a predator. And it's not just the plot, it's the world. In season 2, Stolas, he was finally caught illegally lending out his books for the imps to use for their business. So the mastermind schemer, Scar, Andrew from the Coffin of Andy and Lele,
Time, my dear.
Speaking on behalf of my
Aggressively attractive.
decides to bring him to court. And instead of collecting evidence against Stolas because he committed, a crime, he just kind of starts accusing Stolas of everything that didn't happen, I guess. Good idea. It would have been a lot simpler to just say, he admitted this.
Bye-bye. See you later.
The court is bored and doesn't care, and it's supposed to be a commentary of social hierarchy, but the story just kind of implodes. It just accepted Stolas as a character who made a mistake and went through pursuing it, then you could have had your cake and eat it too, but no, you just really need that bird brain just to look like the good guy. Meanwhile, Helluva Space King, everyone is kind of evil and awful. No one is forcing you to pity them. You want to see them blow up a planet because a suit got scratched? Want to see them do it again?
Do it, Houston.
It's weird because they're bad people and Hell Excuse actually became the biggest issue with Helluva Boss, because Blitz kind of pointed out how whiny everyone is about little shit that doesn't matter when they're literal demons murdering people, and it never got addressed when he brought it up. Moxie constantly has to learn killing children is cool actually. Space King episode 2, entire episode about Chestnut unlearning basic morality and empathy. Even though they are evil, he gains respect and saves the day by literally embracing a hate mace. This is like if Darth Sidious was the protagonist's mentor, right down to the armor. Isn't the macing? I don't know much about Warhammer, but one thing hammered into my head like a war, I'll stop with the puns, is that apparently none of the factions are good people. They claim to be good because of propaganda, and that can dive into morality in a more interesting way, just being brainwashed all your life. Space King episode 2 was a massive scale and narrative improvement on the first, exposing how messed up the world is and not pulling punches, and hilariously ending the episode with a spacecraft being blown the fuck up. It shouldn't have been praised, but it was. Hey, sometimes the answer to all of our problems is toxic masculinity. I want to see some people explode occasionally. Obviously, no one's actually going to think that. No one's going to watch the show and be like, Lehacarino, if only the media literacy redditors could save me from going down the Alt King pipeline. I like a bad guy character, so I must be bad guy. People can know a character's a bad guy and still like him. It's fiction. It's fun. And Helluva Boss got a hell of a lot less fun after they forgot that. If you got bad people, just let them be bad, even if you want them to be sympathetic. You can add depth, but don't try to take away from what we've already seen. I think that's another reason that the circus failed so badly as a backstory. Instead of just explaining Stolas' psychology and recontextualizing things from his perspective, it actually replayed the same scenes, downplayed some aspects, and increased other aspects, but all of it just happened to make Stolas a poor little baby. It did the worst thing you can do in a backstory, by removing depth. Space King doesn't have much depth to begin with, so laughing at the fireworks and mayhem while still having terrifying implications, intrigue, at the back of your mind about the world building, it kinda goes hard. Though on that note, Please don't harass anybody. I'm talking to you, Space King fans, not just with Helluva Boss, but I've seen you guys try to make enemies with Warhammer fans a few times. The show's creator is paid from Patreon. He gets demonetized for edgy content. Sometimes his content is straight up deplatformed. They just denied a contract with a larger streaming platform. They literally cannot afford you to gatekeep. You need as many patrons as possible to keep the show going. And speaking of Patreon and keeping the show going, if you would like me to talk about a show, request it on Patreon, and I'll definitely do it if it's allowed. Graphic designing, I do that. I do art commission. Please let me know on Patreon. I get 30 cents a day. Recently, it's gone up to $1 a day on YouTube. To say that's less than minimum wage is a bit of an understatement. It doesn't work, man. My Patreon rates are incredibly good given the plus archive content, sneak peeks, and other little secrets. If you like animation, sub to Alecations, yeah.